Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of From Learning to Earning. We're advancing Kentucky's 60 by 30 goal through aligned education, experience, and employment. In March, Mitzi and I decided to have a combined webinar as we focus on military service as a pathway to post-secondary education, leadership development, and career success. We're really excited to explore how military service can open doors to college opportunities, technical training, meaningful careers, while also providing valuable skills and leadership experience and financial support for education. So, whether you're an educator or an advisor, we really hope this session offers some helpful insights and practical information to support informed military decision making about this pathway. I really love our agenda that we've planned for you today because it includes practical information that you can use with your students, but it also has a lot of personal stories from current, former, and retired military service people who will share how their military experience has helped them achieve academic and career goals. So let me begin by saying how much we appreciate and are so grateful for their service to our country. While military service holds many opportunities for all the people who join, we do not want to lose sight of the commitment and the sacrifice that is also required. You'll hear some about that today. So, to all of our guests today, thank you for being here. And to all of our panelists, thank you for your service. And we really look forward to the conversation. So, our first guest today is Dr. John Christopher Gregory, or JC as he prefers to be called. And JC is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. He currently serves as the Executive Director at the Office of Adult Education in Kentucky's Education and Labor Cabinet. Dr. Gregory, I've enjoyed learning so much about your amazing life story of service and sacrifice and awards. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, ma'am. I am truly grateful to be considered and thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, JC, I have really loved hearing about your story. So I'd love for you to just share with our viewers today a brief history of your introduction to military service and military academies as a path to education and career.
Well, that is what I believe a very unique story because it actually started in the classroom. It actually started in a 10th grade history class. My history teacher walked to me one day and said, "You would be a wonderful candidate for VMI." And I had no idea what that was. And she went on to explain to me that it was a place where I could go and get a 4 year degree and then at the conclusion serve in the Army as an officer. So from that point, she went and spoke to my counselor, and that's when the entire process started. And that's how I actually was socialized into this process of what this type of lifestyle could possibly be for me. So that was actually the beginning of my process when I was 15 years old, a sophomore in Richmond, Virginia.
I love so many things about the story, but especially how influential your high school teacher was in, your entire life story, and how just one suggestion, like I think you'd be a great candidate, could make such a difference in your life. I would bet that some people who are listening today don't know what VMI is. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
VMI is Virginia Military Institute. It is a senior military college. And it is the oldest state military college in this nation. It was established in 1839. It is a wonderful place, but more specifically for me, wonderful people. So it gave me the opportunity to be in close proximity with just some extraordinary young men back then. Because when I came through that process many, many years ago, it was all male. Since then, the status is no longer that. But it was just a wonderful place for me. I spent 4 years there, and the people there, more specifically, continue to be a significant component of my life, particularly my roommates. And they were just extraordinary young men back then, and are more so now. So that has been a significant component of my life throughout my entire life, whether it's been personal and or the professional components of my life.
So going to a military institute is a little different than a kind of a traditional pathway into the military. I heard you say that at the end of your education, you were already an officer. Can you tell a little bit more about how that is different from how some people enter the military?
Yes, ma'am. So, and this is somewhat a unique story because when I first told my parents about this process, more specifically my father, who had served in the Army, he enlisted in the Army, and he really didn't have a concept or could not see me at that time as being a lieutenant. But so I couldn't explain it to him at that point in time because I did not have the depth and the breadth of what the process was. But I was eventually able to articulate that to him. But simply put, you have to have a bachelor's degree to be a officer in the U.S. military and going through that military school structure. Now, you don't have to go to a military school. You can go through ROTC at the University of Louisville and other places like that and go through that process. But that is the difference from being enlisted in the military vice going through the officer process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love hearing you talk about the influence and the long-term friendships that that you started while you were at VMI and how that has continued through your life today. So, can you tell us just a few of the important life lessons that you've learned during this time that have served you well, like for your whole life?
Well, probably most extraordinarily, the greatest blessing that I have received from serving in the Army was that I met my wife in the Army. So I met my wife in the Army almost 3 decades ago. As a matter of fact, more than 3 decades. And so she was serving in the Army, and she is retired. Um, so we both are retired from the Army. So that is the greatest blessing that I have learned. Something else is oftentimes some people seem to think that the military is a last resort, and it is not.
Mhm.
There are some highly capable, intelligent, just extremely, extraordinarily talented but individuals in the military. And it is not a place of last resort. Actually, it is an opportunity. And what it has taught me and some of the things that it has and has set the conditions for me is that it teaches you how to solve problems. And it taught me the joy of figuring things out. And those are things that are applicable in the classroom. Those are things that are applicable in the boardroom. Those are things that are applicable in the government space. So all of those things in totality, I think have set the conditions for me to be able to do some things post retiring from the Army. So I have been able to reinvent myself multiple times. So in 2019, I was Colonel Gregory, and then I retired, and then I had an opportunity to go onto a college campus, and I was Dr. Gregory, a faculty member and an administrator, and then I transitioned from that into the Kentucky state government. So now I am executive director Gregory. So all of that from a foundational standpoint is rooted in my service and my experience in the military.
Yeah. I love how you talk about the like the rigor of the experience that you had at VMI. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process of how you were able to become enrolled at VMI? Because it's not an easy process.
No, ma'am, it's not an easy process, and you have to be. Um, so the process that I went through, I actually applied to the service academy. So I applied to the service academies. I started the latter part of my sophomore year and went through the balance of my junior year. And I sought a nomination from a senator and from a congressperson in the state of Virginia. Now, I did not get the nomination. I think I was the third alternate to West Point and maybe the second alternate to the Naval Academy. And I was actually headed to the Naval Academy Prep School, which is in Rhode Island. And then one night, my father walked into my bedroom and he said, "We are going to VMI." So that was the end of the story for me as far as having to make a decision as to where I would spend the next 4 years of my life. But I was appointed to VMI, and I showed up in August of 1985. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history. But it is a pretty specific and somewhat long process. Most individuals that go through that process, you start no later than the beginning of your junior year, and then you go through that entire process, and then those individuals make a determination as to whether or not you receive a appointment to places like VMI, West Point, the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, and places like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've loved this conversation. I'd like to end the conversation with you. It's just such an honor to know you and hear your story, and I'm so appreciative of all that you've shared. But you did share with us about an honor that you recently received in, I think 2019, and then 2019, is that right? Or
Yes, ma'am.
2018
So it was
celebration. Can you tell a little bit about that?
2018.
2018.
So VMI was the last school in the Commonwealth of Virginia to admit individuals who look like me. So the first individuals with skin hue similar to mine came into VMI in August of 1968, and they graduated in May of 1972. So, in celebration of that, so 50 years in 2018, I had the distinct pleasure to be honored with those individuals that came through that first class, which were four, and two other extraordinary human beings. One has passed away, as they recognized us as being, I guess, benchmarks, and having achieved something, uh, being a student at VMI. So they brought us back on posts, and we stood there with the superintendent and we watched the pass and review, which is when the students march across the field. They took us down on the football field during a halftime of the football game. So it was an extraordinary opportunity for me as well as my wife and our family. But we were recognized for some of the things that we were able to do in conjunction uh, with some of our peers at the Virginia Military Institute.
Well, I guess belated congratulations, but I love to hear that story of how your service was recognized there at Fort Knox. So, Dr. Gregory, thank you so much for taking time away from your family today to be with us, and I really do appreciate you sharing your story of military service.
No, thank you so much, ma'am. I'm extremely grateful.
All right, at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Mitzi Holland, who's going to have a conversation with Denise Young.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Denise, for joining us. Um, There, yeah, there you go, Denise. I think your video's back on. We're certainly glad that you are here with us today. And we've heard from Dr. Gregory, we've heard his story, and we're going to hear from several more today about how the military has impacted their life and their career path. And so, Denise, I want you to tell us a little bit about your career in the military. You know, why did you choose military service? And what did you have in mind for your career when you started that journey?
Okay, first of all, thank you for including me in this opportunity. I chose when I was a little girl, my daddy used to tell me stories, and he only served a couple years. And I always said I was going to join, and I knew that I was going to be a soldier. So I joined actually the National Guard when I was 17 years old, and I spent about a year and a half in the Guard before going active duty because a friend of my family's said if you join the Guard, if you really don't like what you're doing, you only got a week in a month and 2 weeks in the summer. But if you go active duty and you don't like it, then you're kind of stuck. So, but I knew I liked it. And when I joined, I didn't want to be a clerk. I didn't want to be a cook. I didn't want to be those things. And the only unit that was around that I could join in the Guard was the MP unit. So I became a MP. And then when I went on active duty, I was an MP for about 6 years. And then I became a CID agent. So I've been in law enforcement for, it was almost 23 years when I retired. I started and finished at Fort Campbell with a lot in between. But while I was in, I learned about this program called Troops to Teachers. And if you serve at least 6 years honorably, they can help you. If you don't already have a degree, they will help you get a degree, but you have to teach where they tell you at that point. But they'll evaluate the degree you have. So the students would sometimes ask, well, what's your teaching degree? Well, I don't have a teaching degree. I have a teaching certificate. My degree is actually sociology, psychology, criminology, which goes into social services. And with the experience, most people in the military are going to teach social studies, which is the best subject ever. So I love social studies. So I was able to teach that. And with the then, and I think it's still similar today, with the Troops to Teachers program, if you work in a Title I area or a low income area, you can get a bonus. So I got, at that time, it was a $10,000 bonus over 3 years to teach in a low income area, which helped. And then when I got out, I got my master's in EDS and school counseling using my GI Bill. So those things helped influence where I'm at today. And thankfully, somebody talked to me.
Whoops, I think we've lost Denise. Let's see here. Robin, I want to bring you back in here. No, there she goes. Denise, we
Yeah.
lost you just
Okay.
a second. You froze on us. And you were just about to say something about I believe the troops to teachers, and
Okay.
don't mind repeating that.
The Troops to Teachers program, if you serve honorably at least 6 years, you can be a part of the Troops to Teachers. If you don't have a degree, they'll help you get an education degree. And then you teach where they tell you to teach. They'll also help you find a job, but they will evaluate the degree you already have. And mine was actually not an education degree, but with your service, more than likely you're going to teach social studies because that's what most of us with our service is. They also will pay for one of the praxis tests, which
Okay.
is good because they're not that cheap. So they'll help you pay for that. And if you teach in a Title I area or low income area, you can get a bonus. And for when I first started teaching, I got a $10,000 bonus to teach at Christian County.
Okay, that's great. And so we know now that you've transitioned from a social studies teacher to a college and career counselor.
Yeah.
And I know when I served as a college and career counselor, and there may be others that are in the same situation, I was not always as comfortable supporting students in military careers because it was such a huge commitment. And I really didn't feel like I knew enough about it to really inform them. So I had to rely on others that were more expert in that area. So, as you think about your role as a college and career counselor, what are some key considerations that you think counselors need to be aware of as they support students in those military career options?
Well, they need to understand that they're going to have a job in the military. A lot of people's like, well, I want to be a Marine. I want to be a soldier. I want to be a sailor or airman. But what job do you actually want? And I know you've got somebody that's going to talk about ASVAB later, but your ASVAB scores actually determine the jobs you're eligible to get. And you have to have certain ASVAB scores to actually get in the military. But once you decide what you really want to do, I try to get in touch with all the local recruiters, expose them to not just one branch, but all the branches. I try to ask them why they want to be in it. For instance, if you want to be in the medical field, you're not going to be in the Marines because they don't have it. The Navy takes care of them. They also, when they get contracts and everything, they just skim through it. Like when we do FAFSAs with them, they just skim through that college stuff. They must read their contracts. It's very important because once you sign it, you're locked in. And it's not like, hey, I don't like this, I'm gonna quit after 2 weeks. Once you sign and you've gone to training, you're committed. And if you get out with something other than an honorable discharge, it could hurt you in getting jobs down the road, especially if you get a dishonorable or general under dishonorable conditions. It could keep you from getting state and federal jobs. So it's really important to know you have a commitment to that, whether it's the Guard, Reserve, or active duty. It's not, I don't like it today, I'm not doing it. You have to stay committed to it. And I just can't emphasize enough about reading that contract, because a lot of recruiters, and there's really great recruiters out there, but they're trying to get their numbers, and sometimes they don't necessarily tell them everything they need to know. And if they don't read that contract, they may be signing up for something they really wasn't wanting to. But with my background, usually they talk to the recruiters in my office, so I steer them straight. I want to make sure they know the real deal. And National Guard and Reserves does deploy, and sometimes the students think, well, if I join this, I want to have to go to a war zone. Well, you're joining the military. You probably have a good possibility of going to a war zone someday.
Yeah. And those are all very, very important considerations, and exactly why I always felt a little nervous when it came to answering questions about that, and thankful that there are people like you and the others on this webinar that can help inform folks who are supporting students in those options. So Denise, you created a slide deck, and then we will share that slide deck out with all the folks that have registered for the webinar. But can you tell us briefly about two of your favorite experiences that you provide for students who are interested in military careers?
Well, you gave me the questions. One of the things is when I was in the classroom, I taught ancient civilizations, and I've been to the Great Wall of China. I've been to these different places. So I was able to share those things with them. And now at the high school level, I can talk to them about the travel, the education, the benefits, the things when you get out, the things you can do while you're in, take advantage of everything they have to offer. Because a lot of students, they don't think about, hey, I can go to college while I'm in active duty. Yes, you can. And it's paid for to a certain extent. They do like to know about basic training. So I talked to them about basic training. Yes, it's changed since I went, because I went a long time ago, but it's still basic training. You've got to get through it. I do currently have something. I'm going to try to bring it up on the camera and show you, but I have a student who's applied to the Naval Academy, and just like our former speaker, it's, his dad didn't want him in the Navy, it sounded like. So it's go Army all the way. And that's what I told the student. I support him every day except the second Saturday in December, but he made sure I have a Go Navy beat Army bracelet he brought back for me. But sharing the stories with the students and their families, because we're a Purple Star school as well. So supporting the families, I kind of know what it's like for these families to be separated and to give the supports they need that way. So it's not just about their future, but the ones who are currently living that life.
And that's very, very good points, Denise. And again, you shared a slide deck that we will be sharing out with everyone, and it's full of great information. Certainly appreciate your service, appreciate all that you do for students in Trigg County now, and would love to hear more, but for sake of time and everything, we're going to move on to the next panelist, and I will turn it back over to Robin. But thank you, Denise, so very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mitzi and Denise. We're going to welcome now Robert Meacham into the conversation. It's my pleasure to introduce Robert. He's currently serves as an education program manager in the Division of Innovation at the Kentucky Department of Education, but he's also an active major in the Kentucky National Guard. So welcome, Robert, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for just offering this opportunity to my constituency as well through educators in the state of Kentucky. I'm really passionate about the military, obviously, as I've still served. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Robert, when we were chatting before the webinar, I really enjoyed hearing your story. And I've made several trips to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
and to the and to Arlington. And when you mentioned that you had the opportunity to be a member of the old guard and
Mhm.
early in your career, I was just fascinated by that. So I'd love for you to start the conversation with telling us a little bit about your kind of unique journey
Sure.
into and through the military.
Yeah, so a unique journey to me is actually very similar for almost, I think it's with recent percentages, it's like 75% of folks in the military have a family connection to the military. So the Army is like just over 80%, and that is no different. I'm a fourth generation Army soldier, followed my father and grandfather and great grandfather, and now my son is also following that. So he's a ROTC cadet at University of Cumberland, so fifth generation. So it is a family business. So that's where I started. But I had a unique way of coming about getting into the service. I enlisted after college. So I played football at Campbell's University and always knew that the Army was something that I desired to do. Just as Colonel Gregory said, like it wasn't a fallback. Like I was going to college to play football and get an education, but then I had a desire to serve, and so I enlisted with a college degree, and so I got a little bit of a rank bump from that. That's an option for the military if you come in with service and decide, or with a degree and decide to enlist. Spent 7 years enlisted, 4 years in the old guard in DC. Just an honored time serving around the national capital at Arlington Cemetery. I performed over 700 military honors funerals in my time at Arlington. That was it's something that I look back on very fondly. My married my wife right after we got there, and so both of our sons were born while we were on active duty in the National Capital Region, and it was amazing. But that was one of the reasons why I got out of active duty, though, because after 4 years, the timing of being able to uh, be a good husband and a good father at that operational tempo it was just something that when having a conversation with my wife, she said, let's not stick around on active duty. And so we decided, but I was able to not have any break in service because that's something is coming right off active duty. I was able to transition right into the National Guard, and I've now served 23 years. Went from enlisted to officer eventually, as my dad wanted me to do, just like Colonel Gregory's dad said, "Why would you ever want to go enlisted when you can be an officer?" And so eventually, I came around to that after almost 8 years of being enlisted. I was commissioned as an officer in the Kentucky Army National Guard. Now an engineer officer, and the young man you're going to talk to later is a soldier in my brigade, whom I love dearly. I love his family, and so yeah. So I'm just absolutely I'm passionate about military service, because it's family business. So I'm really excited to talk to you more today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for that kind of summary. I know we could talk for a long time about all of your experiences. I know that also as an educator, working for the Kentucky Department of Education, that you also are thinking about how to help students and support them so that they can be really successful. So we thought that you might be a bit of an expert on the ASVAB. So that stands for Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. We know it's a really important early step in military enlistment and preparation. So, can you share a little bit about the ASVAB and what interested high school and post-secondary students and families and counselors should know about how to prepare?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things about the ASVAB, and Denise already brought it up, that it's an entrance exam essentially. But what I always tell students is your score on the ASVAB is not a way for the military to decline you. It's just it's a means to find the right fit for you. And so the military has done a really good job, especially just from taking it from just a basic entrance exam to a more career exploration program. And so that's what the ASVAB Career Exploration Program is now a part of the design of the program. The ASVAB provides you with a cut scores of technical math calculation, reading comprehension, technical, mechanical, all these different cut scores that make up your AFQT, and that's your essentially your baseline score. So if you think about the ACT having different subsections and then having a basic overall score, that's similar to what the AFQT score is for for entrance into the military. Now, every branch has a different like basic minimum to get in. Army and Air Force is usually around 31. The Marines is usually around 31, can go up to 35. The Navy is usually a little higher, but fluctuates, and usually fluctuates based on the amount of the need for that specific branch to actually recruit soldiers or sailors or airmen. So so it does fluctuate, but that baseline is what the military branch is looking for you to qualify for. Now, also, as Denise mentioned, like certain jobs have certain cutoffs. Like if you want to be an Army linguist, you're going to have in that top, 5%, over a 90% on your ASVAB score. If you want to be like me, I scored very well on the ASVAB, but I only needed a 31 because I chose to be an infantryman when I enlisted, and so that was I took a different route, but it was something that I desired. So the ASVAB Career Exploration Program, I really do encourage high school counselors and those, since we no longer in the state of Kentucky actually offer the ASVAB to everyone as a you can still offer it within your school, and it is free. It is free of charge. It's just something that your school and your district has to make a decision about reaching out to the folks in I guess like the closest location to you, and some of the resources that I've given you all that you're going to see later will take you to like a person that you can reach out to either in Louisville or Knoxville or Nashville, kind of like whichever site is closest to you. State lines don't really matter for that place. It really is a geographic, like how close you are to that educational specialist. But they can actually come on into your district, to your high school, to give the ASVAB. Not to every student if you want, but it is offered to 10th graders and above. It offers a exploration program similar to what Futurity does for our students in the ILP process. So that's something that the ASVAB does in kind of relation to the requirements of like ESSA and things. They did a pretty good job of kind of revamping their exploration programs around what the scoring on the ASVAB is. So yeah, the ASVAB is essentially, it's just a starting point. And for high school students who aren't sure, I'm grateful that Kentucky has Futurity and has IOP requirements 6 through 12. So that's we're actually ahead of some states in that case. The ASVAB CEP actually does what that does in the state of Kentucky. So it's just one other level of exploration.
Yeah. I think I didn't know a lot of what you've shared about the ASVAB. I would imagine that a lot of our attendees today also didn't know things like, well, you can take the ASVAB for any branch of the military, and then if there are particular jobs that you would like to have, I'm not sure that people, think about the different career opportunities within the military, that you have certain scores for all of those. And we'll also share some different apps that Robert has collected for us about how students can study for the ASVAB. So if they take a practice test and they know they want to aspire to a particular role, and they need to increase that score, how they can work to get closer to that score.
Yeah, and that's something that, I had a student at Anderson County High School who took the ASVAB 7 times. He was one of my students with disabilities, just struggled to read. But he was dedicated, and he said, "This is what I want to do. I want to be a mechanic in the Army." And so, through practice and ASVAB tests and just constant, it's about consistency. And so just consistent practice of reading comprehension and consistent practice on math calculation took him from a 7 to that he got that magic 31. And when he showed me that he passed, he was just so excited and was able to get through basic training and serve honorably in the Kentucky National Guard for 6 years now. So it's not something that, it's a one-time, I didn't make it. If you have a student who's just super dedicated to it, with consistent practice, and that's what some of those resources are, is just showing you, like with a Google Play app that they have on their Chromebook, they can do 30 minutes a day and can really improve their score to reach that cut line.
Yeah, that's inspirational for both that student and for you as
Yeah.
an educator. There's nothing better than seeing your
Well,
students achieve their
yeah, and
goals.
it changes his like his family dynamic, just changes, potentially for generationally. So yeah.
Yeah. Robert, we're about out of time, but I did want to end by asking you just one last question. And it has to do with, you talked about the long-term benefits for you, that it's beneficial to you even after your time of enlistment, full-time
Mhm.
service, that it's beneficial to you now as a husband, father, to stay in the military. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I do a lot now, having reached a rank, where I'm managing, 500 plus soldiers, is a lot of just letting them know like what the service still offers them. And so it's, that initial benefit of service is a crucial understanding, but then staying in and understanding the benefits of medical insurance, of low cost medical insurance, even for our National Guard soldiers, for a family with 2 kids, I'm paying just over $200 a month for my medical insurance every month. Like,
That's
I
amazing.
don't know, like you just consider. And so it's just helping young soldiers understand, like, okay, if you give up that and now you're paying this and you give up your guard pay for the weekend and you're not having that, it's like what's the ultimate negative drawback. And so having them see like the certification programs. This summer I'm going to get my project management certificate through the Army, through tuition assistance that's also on top of GI Bill and on top of the fact that they paid for my master's degree, and I was able to transfer some of my GI Bill to my son who is now in college. Like, that's there, people don't understand. It's like, well, I don't need the GI Bill because I'm not ever going to use it. Do you have a wife and kids who might go to college? You can transfer all of that to them. And like those extra benefits are something that I just, once they compound and once you're in service, it's really hard to really measure it and say I'm gonna walk away from this, because the benefits are just massive. Not to retirement and all those other things are huge benefits at the back end, but just the career exploration, the career advancement opportunities to go from enlisted to officer, to go from officer to professional, through a doctorate degree that they can also help pay for, or certificates like a PMP that they could also pay for. It's just so many benefits that, like Colonel Gregory said, like it's not a last chance. It's not a last choice. It's a career opportunity, and it's a viable option for so many of our young people.
Yeah. Well, Robert, can't thank you enough for being with us today. Thank you so much, and we appreciate. We'll be sharing out all of the resources that you've given us with the attendees today. So
Awesome. Thank
thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you. All right. Well, we've talked a lot about high school and kind of the transition from high school to post-secondary. And now I'm happy to welcome Kent Johnson into the room. In preparing for this webinar, we learned a lot about students who were interested in or connected to the military, lots of different kinds of support that they could have from both their high schools and from post-secondary institutions. And so now we want to talk to Kent Johnson. Kent is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, correct? Okay,
Yeah,
and the current director of military student services at Western Kentucky University. So, Ken, thank you for being with us today.
thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Yeah. Well, I'd like for you to start out by telling us. I know that Western Kentucky University has been identified and sort of celebrated as a top tier university for military students. So, can you tell us a little bit about how WKU earned this recognition?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the military friendly, there's two major surveys that we fill out each year. One is military friendly school survey, and then there is a best for vets survey that we fill out. And so they look at success metrics for students. So graduation rates, retention rates, persistence rates, those kind of things for the military connected population of students that you have. And then they also look at school policies. So if you have military friendly policies like something to do with absence, like if a military service member has to be absent, so specifically like National Guard, if they have a drill weekend and they're going to miss a test, do you have a policy that helps them, that tells the instructors they need to help work with those students? So looks at the institutional policies, and then programs you offer. Like we have a textbooks for troops program that helps with the textbook need, because those can get expensive, and that's sometimes a added cost for higher education that some may not consider until you get in
Yeah.
there and see what they are. So it looks at those kind of things and then ranks the schools based on that.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've been very humble about saying that and commending other Kentucky colleges and universities for being military friendly as well. And I think
Yes.
we're very fortunate to have that kind of support in our state for military students and for their families. So let's talk a little bit about your Office of Military Student Services. What kinds of things do you do?
Sure. So, and thanks for mentioning that about the other schools, because Kentucky's a really great place for educate higher education and serving the military. And my colleagues at the other schools, we work really closely together because we want the student to go where it's best for them. But specifically in our office, and this will be very similar to the other schools as well. So if you're working with anyone that has a military connection and wants to go to school, we definitely recommend them reach out to our office or the similar offices at the other schools. But basically what we are is we're a dedicated point of contact for those military connected students. And military connected, we're talking in active duty, National Guard, Reserve, veteran, but also children and spouses. That's an important population not to forget. And so we're a dedicated point of contact for them. We help them from the point of inquiry, where they might call and say, "Hey, I'm interested in going back to school. I know I have benefits. I don't really know how to access them. What kind of services do you have? What kind of programs do you have?" So we help kind of find out what they're wanting to do, career wise, how the education can help them get there, and then how they can pay for it and how to navigate the process. So a lot of what we do is directing them and navigating them, and then we work directly with them on accessing their benefits, how to get access to the VA education benefits like the GI Bill, state tuition waiver, KDVA tuition waiver, the textbook program, those kind of things, and then also making sure they're connected with the resources within the campus and within the community for those other things that impact their success, like how if they're struggling financially or they're having mental health issues or those kind of things. We want to make sure they're connected. So we just kind of provide wraparound services for them.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised when we initially talked because I think of military benefits as more on the financial side of things. We help you pay for college. But
Mhm.
you mentioned a lot of other kinds of support that students and families might need. And so that was really good to hear that your office offers that type of support.
Yes, I mean, when they're stressed about, family situations or things like that, it takes them away from being able to be successful. So, and there's a lot of great resources. So that's a lot of what we do is just maintain good rapport and relationship with those resources. And that way we can direct them to the resources.
Yeah, you also mentioned that your office works in collaboration with other offices at Western as well. Maybe it's a benefit to the military, but it also might be something else that's available on campus that students might not know about.
That's correct. So we have we do that anyways, but then we've also kind of institutionalized it to make sure that we're being purposeful about connecting with these offices. So we have a military success team, which consists of representatives from our office, the VA area, the financial aid, registrar admissions, academic colleges, and then we meet at least once a semester. But it's also we maintain contact so that if anything changes within the institution that we may not be aware of, it's a good way to find that out. If there's a policy change or a key date, keeping up with those key dates that's important for the students, and it helps us disseminate that information, and it also helps us connect the students because a student, especially if they're first generation, they may not know what a registrar's office is, and so if their instructor's like, you need to go to the registrar's office, they don't know what that is sometimes, so we
Exactly.
help them, because we have that good relationship with those areas.
Yeah, I think both of us are in the fan club of Dr. Corinne Murphy, and I know that you had
Yes.
mentioned that she provides some like upper level leadership for making sure that WKU is military friendly. So, can you talk a little bit about how important it is at a post-secondary institution to have like a champion for the work that you do?
Yes, that is key. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, if you can have top-down support, that's really going to be crucial in helping you serve your students well. Whether it's support for the office that's doing that work, or championing. I can't talk today.
It's a hard word.
Programs or events or those kind of things. So I mentioned the military absence policy. That was something that I was involved in back when we were creating that, and we didn't have that policy at the time. And so folks like Dean Murphy that can take those initiatives and bring that before the administration and champion that. So she can take it to the Council of Deans, and then they can take that to the provost and the president. And so you have the buy-in at the upper level. And we also did that with extending the military tuition rate policy, which I didn't mention as far as being military friendly. And a lot of the other schools in Kentucky do that as well. But we do that $250 per credit hour rate for service members currently serving service members. And we extended that to the U.S. Public Health Service, officers in the U.S. Public Health Service, and NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, because there are officers. Those are two other service branches that are often not thought about because they're not armed forces branches, but they're same rank structure, same, they get deployed, same kind of stressors and all that. So we wanted to include them, and she helped us champion that and extend that rate to the officers that are in those two service branches as well.
Yeah. It's great to hear that, you have advocates for military service people on campuses who are thinking about the things that maybe they're not aware of or not thinking about. In that vein, I really just have two final questions for you. One is, what would you want students in high school to know as they're coming toward you, and thinking about military service as a pathway, and also just coming into higher education? What would be helpful for them to know?
I believe it was Denise was talking about that earlier about shopping around, like she helps them get information from the different branches. So if you want to join a specific branch, that's great. We're not trying to keep you from doing that, but also know your other options. So I think that if those high school students that when I wanted to join the Marines, I knew I wanted to do that. And at first I didn't want to go to college. So I didn't even look into what kind of education benefits. And it wasn't until I was in that I started to want to go to college. And so I would say make sure that if the military is on their radar, whether they're totally bought in and want to do it or just think they are, to get the information about that. And then also higher education, even if you don't think that's something you want to do, the military service, as we've heard this morning, comes with a lot of support and benefits for that. So even if you're not sure or don't think you want to go to college, make sure you know those benefits and then know who to reach out to. So connect if you're interested in going to school and the military, connect with those offices like ours or the other veteran or military offices on campus, because they're going to know how to help you, and also your timeline, whether you're going active duty and you're going to go to higher education after that, or if you're in the National Guard and you're going to go right after you graduate and do the National Guard, but also go right into higher education, and the timing of those things and how to navigate it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that coordination and that handoff from high school to post-secondary, just knowing that an office like yours, excuse me, exists is really important for students.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Kent, so much. I want to just give you just a couple of minutes now to tell us a little bit about your military experience. We didn't talk about that yet, so we would love to hear your personal story too.
Oh, well, thank you. As I'd mentioned, I'm not, when I was in high school, I didn't want to go to college. Uh, I was actively against it, to be honest. It's ironic now that I'm in education as my career, but I wanted to join the Marines. I knew first and foremost I wanted to be a Marine and I wanted to be infantry because I wanted to experience that. And so that's what I did right out of high school. I went to boot camp, joined the Marines infantry, and did that right away. And it wasn't until about halfway through my first and only enlistment because I did one enlistment, but about halfway through, I was in Iraq, and I was standing on a rooftop and seeing the children that we were right. Our fob was right across from a school, and to see these little kids go down to school holding hands with their friends or whatever, walking down the same streets that we were getting blown up on, and that we were it's dangerous times, dangerous environment that they were in. This was around between 2006 and 2007, and it inspired me. I was inspired by that, and I was like, these children are going to school, whether they really wanted to or they were, made by their parents. But either way, they were doing it. And I was thinking, man, we're so blessed here in this country, to have all these opportunities, and I'm going to have the GI Bill and different benefits, and I need to take advantage of that. If nothing else, for children that are like in their shoes, because if I have the opportunity and I just squander it away, that just seemed wrong for me. So, and I wanted to learn about why, like, our foreign policy, why were we in Iraq, why were we doing this, and how it impacts the people's life there, because I could see that every day, but also the service members' life. So then I began to get really excited about it, and it wasn't until after I got out of the Marines, after my first enlistment, I used a program called Veterans Upward Bound, and because I knew I had benefits, but I had no idea how to navigate them. I was not comfortable with academics because it had been 4 years, 5 years or more since I got out of high school. So I used Veterans Upward Bound, which is a free support for military, and they helped me get tutoring to get my academic confidence built up, but then also helped me navigate the admission process, getting my military transcripts, all that, and getting into school. And I honestly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So that's kind of why I'm giving back now, and why I'm so blessed and happy to be in this kind of role, is to help other service members that are transitioning or military connected students, to help them fulfill their goals and things like that. So
Well,
that was my
thank you for sharing that story. I love that story about being inspired by the children, and I just love your story and the work that you do. We really appreciate your service, both then and now, to students who are military connected. So thank you again, Kent, for being here. And we're going to transition now to our very last guest for today, and that is Jacob Ellis. Let's see, there he comes. Hi, Jacob.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. All right. Well, we're wrapping up the webinar now with our final story. This is Jacob Ellis, and he is a Kentucky National Guard sergeant, and he also has a civilian position. So, Jacob, I want to just give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and kind of where you are in life.
Yeah, so I just finished up my degree, I would say about a year ago. I kind of landed a position in a residential psych facility. So it's basically a residential facility with adults with disabilities, and I get to kind of be a leader there. And I'm just over the people who are giving these people their daily care. But on the Army side, I just got sergeant, I want to say 9 months ago. So it's been pretty recent. It's an interesting transition from being a lower enlisted soldier and maybe not a leader in the civilian side to being a leader in both. So you don't really get a break on it, but I thoroughly enjoy it. But I joined the military. Actually, I'm rounding out my sixth year now, so joined in 2021, right at the heat of COVID. And I was already, I think, 2 years into my college career, and I think COVID hit. We all got sent home. We came back for a little bit, and we were kicked out of class again. And I was like, man, I need something else. And then I ended up joining the Army.
Yeah, it's pretty. COVID was just such a cataclysmic event in life. I think everybody had big decisions to make, and so yours was I'm gonna join the military. So that was an interesting response to COVID.
It sure was. It wasn't a common response. I'll be honest. My mom likes to say that it saved my life. Because I'll be honest with you, I was in nursing school, and let me tell you, nursing's not easy. And the classwork that we had while online, when I already didn't understand the applications they were using, it was rough. So it was a nice transition to. Well, and when I came back, I tried it again, and wasn't for me. But I tell you what, joining the military honestly kind of reoriented my life a little bit whenever I got back to school.
Yeah, I know that you've had a lot of different transitions. So talk a little bit about like when you were in high school, what you thought you were going to do with your life, and then kind of how that has morphed over time.
Right. So I'll be honest. Senior year of high school, no intention on joining the military ever. I had a pretty decent ACT score, I had a great GPA. So none of my counselors were telling me anything about the military. We had the recruiters that came through often, and none of their things were enough to sell me. Even though I ended up picking a school that didn't give me a whole lot of scholarships there, I had some still. Uh, but yeah, no one ever really told me that the military can be an addition to what I'm already doing in school. They made it sound like it was a plan B if school didn't work out. Oh, don't worry, there's always the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, Navy, yada yada yada. Um, you always have a backup plan, and I think the biggest realization whenever I did join was that, oh, this isn't a backup plan. This can elevate every single thing about my life as opposed to just being my fallback whenever school doesn't work out.
Yeah, I loved when we were having our preparation conversation. You described it this way. You said I had no idea what was available when I enlisted, and that there are a number of on and off ramps within the military, and that it's really up to you what you make of it. So tell us a little bit about how you've tried to make the most of it.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, yeah. So in the National Guard, especially, it is what you make of it. There are a multitude of opportunities throughout the year, spanning from there are deployments, which I volunteered for deployment for the end of this year, but I haven't really heard much back on that one. But whenever there's natural disasters, there's these things called SAD missions or state active duty, which I got to do two of those. Um, had this really cool summer program it's called JSO. I think it's Joint Service Operations. Basically, you work with law enforcement, and I think it's to combat drug distribution and whatnot. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say that opportunities in the Guard. I mean, there's just tons. I would say every other drill that I go to, I hear a briefing on something new that we can go do.
Uh-huh.
And Major Meacham came up on here earlier. I showed my interest in PA school at one point, which I think that's a little past now, but he had a bunch of information on that one. It was a little much, and he was giving me all these people to talk to. So the opportunities are never ending, no matter what you want to do, medical field or not. Which I'm in the engineering field. My MOS is 12 Bravo and 12 Charlie. But that's basically bridge building and explosives, and so I actually get to see Major Meacham every now and then when I go to drill.
I have heard that you are a fan of explosives, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a good time. You only do it a couple times a year, but it's definitely a little cherry on top for the service.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about like some of the benefits, and then you got down to kind of the brass tacks about here are some of the specific things that that you can enjoy. And what I didn't know, and I learned from you, is that military benefits for National Guard service can vary from state to state. I thought it
Mhm.
was all the federal government kind of provided, and it was the same. Can you talk a little bit about that in Kentucky?
Right. So my knowledge is on it isn't perfect, but I do remember whenever I was going through the process of enlisting that they told me that in Kentucky that I'm pretty sure most institutions they'll pay 100% of your tuition. Now, when I went to basic, the way I learned this was, you meet people from all over the states. I had some guys from Louisiana saying, "Oh, they only give us $20,000 in total." Some states were like, "Oh, we get 10K every semester," which covers most, but not all, especially when you go to a little pricier institutions. So, I mean, from what I heard, is Kentucky actually like is probably one of the better states to be in the Guard. I think they provide a lot of great opportunities and a lot of good funding too, from what I've been told. And I've experienced that too. I think at one point they were paying for summer courses and they weren't. But I've never had once I was in, I never had to pay for a fall or spring semester. Like So it was pretty good. But I can't speak on other states specifically, but I know that they're not as they're a little bit lacking when it comes to, well, in comparison to Kentucky, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just did not realize that that was state funding that went for those benefits, and it's awesome all the things that you've been able to take advantage of. All right. So a couple more things. I know
Mhm.
that you said you've met a lot of people that you really like, and that you've had all these great opportunities. But I also know that you said you've not had a birthday at home with your family for 5 years. So, what are some of the things that people should know that maybe could be kind of on the downside of, the responsibility that you sign up for?
Well, I think it is common knowledge to begin with. Whenever you do join, there is a bit of sacrifice. Any time away from family, any time, especially when you start your own family, it's sacrifice. I think most people can expect whenever their unit is up to strength and whatnot, and like the availability is there to deploy at one point in their career. Unfortunately, I've not had the opportunity to do so, but I do expect it in the next couple of years because I do plan to reenlist. But I mean, everything's a sacrifice. An example of this, I was actually at BLC this January, so I didn't have to deal with this too much. But in our January drill, they activated a good majority of the state during the snowstorms, and they weren't allowed to go home, so they stayed I think into Monday or Tuesday. So they did their Friday through Sunday, and then they were stayed Monday Tuesday just to wait and see if they were needed, which
Yeah.
is great that we can have that availability to help out those who need. But uh, it does come to a bit of sacrifice. You have to deal with your employer and whatnot, and at home, not being
Yeah.
there during the regular week. So yeah, I mean, there's a great deal of sacrifice there depending on what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jacob, let's round up our conversation. I'd like to hear a little bit about what are your aspirations for the future, and how has the military helped you form the plans, and how do you think the military will help support what you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, so both on the civilian side and in the guard, the idea is to just keep climbing. I enjoy the rank that I have now. I have a really close relationship with my soldiers. I have a great deal of influence with them, and I think I'm doing it for the positive. But I'd like to keep climbing past that and influence more, do more. And I personally think that the officer side isn't for me, at least right now. Um, but I enjoy that closer connection on the enlisted side, and it motivated me at work to shoot for the stars. I think there was a couple positions open that are much higher than what I'm at now, and I applied to all of them because we'll see what happens. But
Uh-huh.
I think whenever I was a lower enlisted, it was really hard to muster up that motivation because you were competing with so many other lower enlisted soldiers to get that first level of leadership. Whenever you start competing for that next level, there's a lot less. You can kind of weed out who actually wants it and who doesn't. But when there's so many lower enlisted who are gunning for that first opportunity of leadership, it's really challenging. And you have to find that motivation yourself. Or I mean, you're not going to get it. And that's kind of goes back to what I was talking about. You gotta make something of it. It's not going to do it for you. So it's all what you make it. So yeah.
All right. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for coming on today to talk about your experiences in the military. We really do appreciate it, and wish you well. I love how the military has inspired you to just go for things and given you confidence in doing that. So hopefully that is the experience of other people as well. So thank you
Of
again
course.
for being
Yeah, I
here.
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. All right, Mincy, I'm going to turn things back over to you to take us home.
All right. Thank you, Robin, and thank you to all of our panelists today. They shared so much great information and we learned so many great things. Appreciate all of their time and of their service to our country and all that they do to inform folks of the military career options. To our folks who are on the webinar, if you are interested and need an ELA or FRISC certificate, we do have an evaluation QR code there on the screen. We would certainly ask that you scan that, complete that, and that is how we will send out your certificates. If you are on the webinar, or if you registered for the webinar and you are watching this live, or excuse me, watching this recorded, we will send out the slide deck with all of the resources that were mentioned today. So be looking for that in your inbox. As always, we certainly appreciate your attendance. And we also want to invite you to stay connected with all of CPE and KAA's happenings. If you have not checked out the toolkit, we will certainly drop the link to the post-secondary advising toolkit in the chat. And as always, we appreciate your attendance. And if you have any questions at all, always feel free to reach out to Robin Aber or myself, and we'll do everything we can to support you. Again, appreciate your attendance. Thank you to our panelists, and we look forward to seeing you in April for our next webinar.